You can't be too careful, can you? With the old coronavirus. Mind you, I'm doing my bit for the community. Oh, aye. Big old bloody queues every morning. People coming for their essentials. Mind you, I don't mind. Right. Beans. 99p each. Look at that. $3.50. Freshly made pasta with a scrummy meaty sauce. It's got meat in it, this one. £6. Oh. White Star. It reminds me of the time I was stood behind the counter. I was serving Jangly John a bottle of White Star when very intelligent fella, you know, Jangly John. Reckons he was a surgeon back in the day. He's read books and all that. I mean, now he stinks of piss and can barely string a sentence together. But over the years, you know, you get snippets of information like married with kids, nice house, living the dream. He comes home early one day to find the wife filming this fella who's stark bollock naked, a big old stot on, covered from head to toe in pedigree chum, while all three of the family Springer Spaniels lick the bugger daft. Well, apparently they're tapped into a very lucrative, if rather niche, market on the World Wide Web. Well, knocked poor John sideways, it did. Well, that's the rumour. And you know what rumours are like. So, I'm serving Jangly John when in struts this fella. Comes right over to the counter, completely ignoring the queue. So straight away, I mean, my heckles are up. I mean, if there's one thing we do properly in this country, it's queue. Rules are rules, but no, straight over to the counter. And he just stands there, right, eyeballing me, like this. After a few seconds, he starts to speak. And at first, I can't quite understand him. It's like he's having a bit of bother getting the words out. But he soon warms up as he goes. And I manage to hear the word Suzanne. Right at the end of, well, whatever it is he's trying to say, he says, Suzanne. I say, I'm sorry, mate. I didn't quite hear anything there except Suzanne. Can you repeat that, please? I'm being polite, because this fella, he could be a spaz or something. I'm politically correct, since I got that fine. So I don't want to put my foot in it, I've got a shop full. Well, he's warmed up a bit now, like, and, the words are coming out of him a bit more fluent. Still slurring, mind you. So I'm thinking, here we go. It's one of Jangly John's mates. Just after a bit of cheap cider, and he'll be on his way. But then I noticed, like, that this fella hasn't quite got the same eau de urine as old Jangles. And so, my interest is piqued, you know. What does he want? Oh, as I say, he's warmed up a bit, sounding more fluent. Not too difficult to understand at all now, which is pleasing, isn't it? Because you always feel like a bit of a bastard asking them to repeat themselves. I mean, it's not their fault, is it? You can see them trying to get the words out, and they get so frustrated when people don't understand them, and they top it off, they fucking drench themselves in spit. I mean, it must be hard. So, I am relieved, to say the least, when I understand this chap. That is, of course, until it dawns on me what has been implied. How many times did you sleep with my Suzanne, he says. Well, you bugger. Now, I've only ever known one Suzanne in my life, and that was Suzanne Barker, who was married to Fred Barker, and they lived on High Hope Street. Now, she died 5 years ago, right? Age 97. That's right. 97. Now, unless this fella is legitimately asking me if I have a proclivity for digging up rapidly decomposed geriatrics and an unnatural propensity to engage in fornication with said dead bint, then there seems to have been a slight misunderstanding. I say, there seems to be a misunderstanding underway here, friend. A slight misunderstanding, I'm sure, but a misunderstanding all the same. And if it's all the same to you, I'd like you to understand that I don't know no Suzanne, well, except for a dead one, who I didn't fancy that much anyway. And that's when I notice the machete. I said, fuck me, he's got a machete. And I tell you what, if you're ever in a shop and there's a big old queue and you're thinking, bugger me, I'll be here all day and all I want is a packet of Monster Munch, then I really would suggest you utter those very words. Because Mother of Jehovah, they were off like a bloody shot in a matter of seconds, and I do mean seconds. It was just me and the Phantom Slurrer. I won't lie. I was scared. And a tiny bit of wee came out, just a bit like. But I had dark trousers on, so I didn't make a song or dance about it. I said, listen, mate, I seriously don't know no Suzanne. And I haven't had sex with anyone for over 10 years, so I'm pretty sure I'm not the fella you're after. If you don't believe me, I said, if you don't believe me, you're welcome to go upstairs. Get yourself upstairs and have a look at the pile of socks beside the bed. It's a lot of years since those socks have seen a foot, mate. But I still get a hell of a lot of use out of them, if you know what I mean. I'm not the man you want. Now, he placed the machete on the counter and he sort of sank. His head and shoulders lowering. He looked tired. He raised his head again and his eyes were filled with tears. I'm sorry, he said, the words still not quite forming themselves properly. I should have known. Damn you, Colin. Damn you. Now, I've only ever known two Collins in my life. The first was Colin Walker, who was in the year above me at Hartside Primary. And he lived with his two dads. Before it was fashionable, on Percy Street, which was just round the corner from me. And despite the age difference, we got on pretty well. And he used to let me smell his sister's tights for 50 pence. Now, the second Colin is an altogether troubling individual who, up until very recently, was a long-standing and very loyal customer of mine. That is, until one very strange morning. Now, day before said morning, I had become aware that one of my refrigerators was on the way out. That is to say that this particular refrigerator was no longer doing any refrigerating and needed to be replaced. I did, however, find that it was far worse the higher up the fridge you went. And on the very bottom shelf, you might get away with keeping things at the required cool temperature, which was welcome knowledge, given that the inside of there had begun to smell like shit. Now, in comes this fella, Colin someone, to collect his sandwich, as he had done every working day for a good few years. Morning, Jason, he says, and I say, morning, Colin, as I did every day, and he makes his way over to the fridge to the left of my counter. I look over to him, and well, he's just stood by the fridge door, looking up at the empty shelf, and then down at the bottom shelf where I've now placed the sandwiches, and he just keeps looking up and down, like he can't quite believe what he's seeing. Slowly, he turns to face me, and he sort of glides towards me. It was otherworldly, ghostly, like his focus on me was so powerful, so direct, that he was suddenly moved by forces unseen and placed in front of me. And there we stood, eye to eye. I weighed myself a bit this day too. And as I speak these words to you here and now, it occurs to me that I might have a underlying bladder problem that requires attention. I'm not sure a grown man should be wetting himself with quite the regularity as I have done over these recent months. Yeah, please, excuse me while I make a mental note of this. Thanks. Ben. He leans into me like menacing like and he says, a lesser man would crumble. But I am not a lesser man. And then off he goes. Never saw him again. Fucking nutter. So I explain all this to Mr. Machete in the hope that he wouldn't kill me, which seemed like the rational thing to do. I missed the bit out about smelling that lass's tights, as I wasn't sure it was relevant, and I was worried that it wouldn't paint a particularly flattering picture of myself. He seemed to listen, take it all in. And at the end of the story, he picked up his machete and made to go, but before he did so, he slowly closed his eyes and lowered his head towards me, ever so slightly like this. And he said meow. That's right. Meow. He said meow. And then he left. I never saw him again. Fucking nutter.